relief is in sight for Australian winemakers after China indicated it's on the brink of ending a years-long trade battle.
Well, we'd be very happy to see Australian winemakers able to export their wines again. The tariffs shouldn't have been there in the first place. I hope that it can happen as soon as possible.
So how significant is this latest step in the thaw, in the rapprochement with China? Let's bring in Senior Fellow at the East Asia, for East Asia at the Lowy Institute, Richard McGregor. Richard, great to see you as always. It's so interesting to me how these steps forward are often seen before a moment where our leaders have talks with Chinese leadership or senior figures of the Communist Party, with the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi due to arrive in Sydney and Canberra next week.
Well, that's right. It's a drip, drip, drip strategy by China. They kind of indicated that this was going to happen, but I think they're sort of doing it in a way which maximises the benefit of good headlines and, of course, creating what they would regard as a good atmosphere for Wang Yi's trip next week. And, of course, after Wang Yi, we have to see if the Chinese Premier, the number 2 in the Communist Party, Li Cheng, is coming as well. But I might say, yes, it's political, but China's trade measures overall did not affect Australia particularly much, but the wine industry, they really hurt. And so for the wine industry, this is exceptionally good news.
And for Chinese consumers too, it has to be said, this was a billion-dollar export industry for a while until these tariffs were hit. One would assume that Australian wine was popular there.
Absolutely, and $1.2 billion, and we worked hard to get that market. I can remember going to sort of, small Chinese cities in the west of the country 20 years ago, and Australia was promoting its wine. It didn't happen naturally. Australian wine's very popular, different ranges of it as well. But I'm afraid Chinese are drinking less wine now. Partly that's due to the economy. The Chileans and the French have jumped in and grabbed our market share. So we're going to get significant return of exports to China, but it's not going back to $1.2 billion, I'm afraid. So, over time, there's been a significant body blow to the exporters.
How would you characterise where the Australia-China relationship is now? It's certainly not back to what it once was, but how would you characterise things as we speak today off the back of the ASEAN summit, which was held last week, and the various views expressed, including by the Foreign Minister Penny Wong, about the importance for the rules of the road to be honoured in the region?
Yes, so I think that's a good indication that it's never going back to what it was. If I want to describe the Sino-Australian relations at the moment, it's kind of like one of those sine waves we used to see, in maths at school, going up and down within very strict bounds. There's issues involving the Australian naval ships off Japan recently. There's the suspended death sentence handed out to Australian writer Young Han Jun. There's, general geopolitical tensions which still basically define the relationship in some respects. But both sides at the moment are kind of decided to play the game to try and stabilise the relationship, to try and manage differences, as the saying goes. But nobody should think that it's going to go back to be a smooth and easy relationship, because it won't be.
It's an opaque operation, the Communist Party and the way that government runs. But I'm just interested in your reflections on the differences between, say, the Foreign Ministry that might want to try and continue the diplomacy, and then the more security-minded agencies, including the military, that have a different worldview. How does that all play out? Because sometimes it looks like they're running at cross purposes.
I think, it's a big question, but I think generally speaking under Xi, the direction comes from the top and the agencies execute it. Without getting too pointy-headed about it, in the old structure, the Communist Party set the direction, then you had a technocratic government. Well, that difference between the party and the government in China is being erased, frankly. So Wang Yi, for example, is foreign minister, but he actually occupies a higher position on the Politburo as head of the sort of foreign policy standing committee. So he's a significant player. how much influence does he have over Xi? How much does Xi listen to his advice? It's very difficult to tell, but I think generally speaking, it's top down. Now, the foreign ministry is there to manage problems. I doubt they're going into bat in any significant way for Australia. They're giving advice to Xi Jinping and the leadership about how to manage Australia.
Great to get your thoughts as always, Richard. Thanks, Richard McGregor from the Lowy Institute.